Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. So on today's video we are going to be talking about energetic circle casting, what it is and how you can do it within your own personal practice. Circle casting is one of those topics that a lot of beginners get really confused over, and this is mainly because every resource and every person seems to have a different way of doing it. It's for a different reason or it's done with a different technique, and at the end of the day, beginners get a little kerfuffled by it all. So in this video, I want to be talking about what a circle is, why it's cast, the different ways of casting it, the different types of circles, and then how you can cast it within your own personal practice. So first things first, what is a circle? Well, a circle, also known as a magic circle within some books, is an energetic space that you create in order to work your rituals, ceremonies, divination in. Now, it is either an energetic circle, which is the type of circle I'm going to be talking about today, or a ceremonial circle, which is commonly seen within books, especially books that are very Wicca based. Now, these two different types of circles are mainly used for the same thing, as one encompasses the other, whereas the other is the bare bones of what a circle actually is. So a circle, in terms of magical practice, is designed to do several things. At its core, it is considered to be an energetic bubble. Now, within this bubble, you are protected from external energies. So it acts as a protective circle, and that's another name that some people refer to it as. It's a protective circle or bubble that allows you to cast your magic, to undertake your divination without being interfered by other energies, without being interfered by other spirits, or without having any other interference energetically, whether that be magically, spiritually, or physically from external sources. So it allows you to have a space where your energy is free to be and it isn't going to be interfered by external sources. Now, another reason why people cast a circle is to offer a space where the energy is contained. Now, with magic, you may well have heard the term raising energy quite a lot. It's the idea that as we undertake magical workings, whether that be spell work or ritual, we are raising energy that is infused with our intention. When we want to, we can then release that energy. Now, especially if you're starting out, you might not be able to contain all of that energy till you choose to release it. And so some of it might just kind of be set free. And because of that, circles are fantastic because they act as a bubble, a sphere around you that gathers all of that energy so it can be released all at once. Now, some of you might be asking, but why is that important? The principle behind this is that if you release a larger amount of energy infused with your completed intention all at once, the response that you might get back is likely going to be greater than if you are releasing unfinished, charged energy off as you're going about the working. And so some people believe that doing a working within a circle offers them better results. Now, not everyone feels this way, especially if they're particularly good at controlling and releasing their energy when they want to. But if you're not so good at doing that, a circle can be really, really useful. Now, another way to use a circle is actually during spirit work or divination. The idea being that the sphere, the bubble, the circle that you are creating not only shields a working from negative energy, negative intention, and negative spirits, but it can also help act as a shield during spirit working, spirit communication, and also divination. So you can shield yourself and the person you are reading for from any interfering negative energies or spirits that you don't want to deal with. So it's also a great way of shielding from those things that you just don't want to have in your space, especially if you're a medium, especially if you're a psychic or a reader. You don't want that conflicting, interfering energy. And so a lot of readers will actually use circles during divination, not just spell work and ritual. So that's kind of a very brief guide as to what circle casting is done for. So I suppose the next thing is, well, do you need circle casting? And the answer to that is no. Circle casting is not a requirement within magic alone. You will find that there are certain religions or traditions that do dictate that a circle is cast before any ceremony or ritual is undertaken. And in that instance, then yes, a circle is required as part of that particular tradition. But if you don't belong to a tradition, path, or religion that requires a circle to be cast, then a circle doesn't have to be cast if you don't want it to be. A lot of people will choose to cast circles for one of the several reasons I've already spoken about, whether that be protection from interfering energies. This is particularly useful if you live in a space that's very chaotic, where there's a lot of people coming and going, or where you know there's a lot of spirits or excess energy. It may be because you aren't completely good at containing your energy till you choose to release it, and in which case a circle is fantastic, because even if you physically can't contain that energy, the circle will contain it for you. And if you are a reader and you don't want to deal with interfering spirits, whether that be because there's lots of spirits around you, or maybe it's because you're not used to having to deal with them yet, a circle can be exceptionally useful. But of course, they're not a requirement. A lot of people will have never cast a circle through their entire magic practice and feel completely comfortable doing so. Other people refuse to not cast a circle and will for any small type of practice that they choose to do, while other people, like myself, will choose to cast a circle as and when I feel it's necessary. Some people will choose it only for the larger rituals, the rituals containing spirits, or things where it's a longer term ritual that's going to require a bubble. So there's lots of different reasons why people might want to cast a circle, and there's lots of reasons why people might not want to cast a circle. If they aren't able to in that particular moment, if they don't want to. Some people, it's just a personal preference not to, and that's completely fine as well. So if you're new to circle casting and you aren't sure yet whether or not you want to undertake it, give it a try. There's a few different techniques that I'm going to be talking about in this video just for energetic circle casting, and then there's going to be other techniques in an additional video on ceremonial circle casting. And if none of these ways really sits well with you, or if you simply don't feel like you need it, don't feel pressured into having to cast a circle. Instead, give it a try. If you enjoy doing it, if you feel comfortable doing it, then that's fantastic. If not, then that's fine too. So as I've mentioned, there are two primary types of circle casting. Now, everyone seems to have their own different way of circle casting, but these are the two main categories that I've come across during my own personal practice. So the one that I'm going to be talking about today is known as energetic circle casting. It's the core basis of what a circle is. The other form of circle casting is primarily found within religious practice. It's often mainly found within Wiccan tradition, and so you'll find a lot of books with a basis in Wicca will include the ceremonial form of circle casting as the only form of circle casting. Now, whichever you choose to undertake entirely depends on personal preference. Some people may do both. Some people may choose that they prefer ceremonial over solely energetic, and other people maybe vice versa. It's entirely personal, and it also depends on your specific tradition. So, energetic circle casting is what we're going to be talking about today. So what do I mean by energetic circle casting? Well, the basis of casting a circle is that it is energy. It's the energy that you've built up inside yourself, and you've also drawn on from the earth or anything else to expand a shield, often called a circle, but is often actually a bubble in shape that is designed to protect you and contain energies. Now, this form of circle casting, as with all forms of circle casting, does require some prior knowledge and some prior ability. And these topics I have talked about in previous videos, so I will link the playlist up here for anyone that's interested. The kind of practices that you're going to need to already be able to do are visualization, which a lot of people already know how to do but just need to perfect that little bit more. Centering, grounding, and energy manipulation. Now, I have put all of my techniques in the videos that I've already posted up in the card in the corner in a playlist for anyone that wants to do that beforehand. Now, some of you are likely already going to know all of those things, so that's why I'm not including them entirely in this video. So you're going to need those basic principles, and this is what I mean when I say that beginner magic is a build-up. It's a layer of topic upon topic upon topic, and by building up in this way you can achieve really successful magical practice. So if you know how to energy manipulate, you know how to ground and how to center, you know how to visualize, you're all set up for doing a circle casting. So one of the biggest questions I get about circle casting is, how do I do it if I don't have a clear space? And the answer to this is that you don't need a clear space. And I think a lot of you might have this question because it's a really, really common one. The idea that you need a large space is primarily found within ceremonial circle casting, where you need to place objects in certain areas. But because in energetic circle casting, all you're using is energy, that energy can pass through objects, it can pass through walls. So if you are in a confined space, or if you want to work on an altar and it's against a wall, don't worry about it. You can circle cast around the space and through the wall if necessary. You can also expand it just within the available space because it's all based on energy and visualization, and that's what makes this form of circle casting so doable for a lot of people. So when it comes to circle casting energetically, there are a few things that you can use if you want to. So at its core, energetic circle casting doesn't require anything. All it needs is your energy and your visualization skills. Now, there are tools you can use if you want to use them. These are an athame or a wand. These are particularly good. You can also use swords and staffs if you want to, but it entirely depends on what you feel most comfortable with. If you don't have access to any of those things, you don't need to worry about it. You can either use your finger, your hand, or just your mind. It depends on the method of energetic circle casting that you want to be doing. Now, there are two different types of energetic circle casting that I'm going to be talking about today, and these are the two types that I have used personally. Now, the first type is what I would consider to be the most useful for very beginners at circle casting, because it gives you more of the physical cues to offer visualization. The second technique is a little bit more advanced because there are no visual cues. You're doing it solely on visualization. Now, that's not to say that if you're a complete beginner, you can't do the second technique, because it's likely that you probably can. You might just need to build your confidence up to know that you can definitely do it without any of the physical cues to build your visualization off. Okay, so the first method involves a little bit more movement than the second method. So you would start by gathering together any objects you want to use within your divination or your spell work. So if you want to do a candle spell, make sure you've got all of the items gathered together around you so that you can easily access it. This is a mistake that I made a lot when I was starting out on circle casting. I would cast a circle and then realize I'd forgotten my lighter in the other room, and then I'd have to put a door in the circle and leave and come back in and reseal it again. Don't worry, I'll be talking about doing that in a little bit. But it's so much more useful if you have all of the items you need for your working around you before you get started. This applies for divination as well. So if you know you're going to be doing a long divination session, make sure you have a drink or something to eat. Make sure you've got your cards or your runes or your spirit board, whatever you're going to be using. Make sure you've got it all in the space around you, as it makes the process far easier. So after you've gathered all your things, this might take a little bit of time, but believe me, it's a lot easier than having to constantly keep opening doors in your circle. You would then sit or stand comfortably. If you aren't able to stand, you can sit, that is completely fine. If you do want to stand, you can do that too. Just make sure you're comfortable wherever you are. You're then going to want to center, ground, and draw up some of the energy from the earth. Now, once you have this energy and it's in the part of your core that is naturally holding that energy. If you want to know more about that, I have the other video on centering and grounding that explains all of that. So you're going to want to hold that gathered energy wherever it sits comfortably in your body, wherever that is. You're then going to want to draw that energy through energy manipulation into a hand or a part of the body that you feel most comfortable using to move in this kind of a way. You're going to want to use a part of the body that can do this. For most people, that is a hand, but of course not everyone has the ability to use their hands, so I would go with whatever you feel best doing. For a lot of people, it's whichever is their dominant hand, so for me it's my right hand. This is where the energy tends to go. Now, if I'm planning on using a tool, this is the moment where I start connecting with that tool. So if it's an athame, I start connecting with it. If it's a wand, I start connecting with it. Because this tool is then going to be used to direct the energy that you are channeling out into the physical world. So if you don't have a tool, you don't need to worry about it. You can just use your fingers, your hands, or whatever other part of the body you are choosing to work with for the circle casting. So you go down into whichever part of the body you're using, so for me it would be my right hand, and you gather it within the palm of your hand. And you make sure that you're definitely gathering it all up and you're storing it there. If you're choosing to use your fingers or a tool, channel it into that part or that object, and then you're going to want to cast it out into a circle. Now, I personally always do this clockwise. So I start forwards and I point my wand or my fingers outwards and I circle round, releasing that energy into a bubble as I'm moving round in a circle. So I'm casting it as wide as it needs to be. You don't need to stop where the ends of your tool or your fingers stop. You can go as far out as you want. Just remember that the bigger a circle you start casting, the more energy it's going to take. So just take that into thought as you're doing it. So once I've been all the way around and I'm coming back this way, I stop where I started the circle. And then I draw my hand back in again. That is the first layer of the circle cast out. Now, an energetic circle or circle casting is actually just a kind of brief description of it. A more accurate way to describe it would be a bubble. So you're also going to want to cast the circle another way. So I then start right in front of me again and I cast the energy back out, but at this time I go all around over my head and then I go down below my feet to meet up at the front again where I stopped that circle. So it's essentially a full loop around. Once I've cast these two circles, I then connect the energy together so it forms a sphere. Now, different people visualize this sphere of energy completely differently. Some people visualize it as gold and sparking. For me, it's blue, and it comes across as almost liquid. It comes across like almost a bubble of water. That's how my sphere looks like. So it's going to look different for everyone depending on the energy that they put out and how you sense your own energy, but that is how I see it in my own mind. So it acts as an energetic bubble that's all around you, and it's something you need to maintain as the working is going on. So it's something you're always kind of conscious of at the back of your mind. It's an extra addition to that working that you're doing to maintain that bubble. Now, it doesn't take a lot of energy to maintain once you've got it up, but that is how you would cast or raise a circle. Once you've finished your working, you would then lower your circle. Now, it is important to lower it. Don't just get up and push your way through the energetic circle and leave, because then you're not effectively releasing that energy that you've built up. Instead, you need to lower that circle. And to do that, you do things backwards. So to start off with, you would lower the connections between the lines that you drew. So in your mind, you would visualize them dropping into the central line. You then do the middle line backwards. So you start in the middle and you go below you and you undo that energy, drawing it back into yourself again. You can do this through a wand or an athame. You can also do it through your hands. You draw it back in again, so it goes up over your head and it connects again in the middle. So you've lowered a good proportion of your circle. You then remove the central line. So you do the same again, but backwards. So you draw that energy back in, moving in the opposite direction. And then when you're back in the middle again, the circle is dropped and you are able to release that energy, or that energy can just be released into the space, and then you can help to receive a magical response. That's just one technique for circle casting. So once that energy is released, you can then take that energy from the circle, you can ground with it again, release it back into the earth, and then you can kind of give yourself a shake off to get rid of all of that leftover energy, and then you're done. Simple as. This is the technique that I started with, and I found it to be a really, really successful technique. Now the second technique is the one that I do currently, and it's mainly because I've practiced the initial technique enough to be able to do it. I couldn't do it this way to start off with. It definitely, for me anyway, came with time. So if you can't do this technique straight away, definitely practice the initial technique and kind of build and build and build, and then eventually it will come really, really easy to you. So the second technique is done without having to move particularly much at all. And so it's great for people who might not have the maneuverability that other people might. So it's something that you do solely with energy manipulation and visualization. You don't really need anything else. You don't need to move. So what you would do is you would start by gathering all your objects, same as before. You would then be in a comfortable position, sitting, standing, whatever it might be. You then center, ground, draw up that energy, store it at a point that is central, and then rather than releasing it into your hands, you expand the energy out as almost like a bubble. So it starts this kind of size and you expand it out, 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 and you make it as large as you need. And you can do this slowly. It doesn't have to be an instant thing. You can do this gradually, drawing in energy, pushing it into the circle, drawing in energy, pushing it into the circle. And by doing it this way, you don't have to use your hands. You can do it solely in your mind until you get the circle or the bubble as big as you want it to be, and then you hold it. And you hold it there and you maintain it with that energy, and then you can go about doing your working like normal. It's a fantastic way of doing it if you don't have the space to be, spinning around and doing all this stuff. It's great if you just want to sit and you just want to cast a circle. And it's great also if you're a reader and you're doing readings in public places, because then you can just cast a circle and you're done. You don't have to go through the process of making it really obvious what you're doing. Now, this type of circle can be done gradually. I know some people that have mastered it to the point where they just have to center, ground, see the ball of energy, and then they can just do that. And the circle is cast and they've expanded it out to as big as they want. It is as quick as that. And how fast you can cast a circle grows with time. So at the very start, it might take a little bit of time to get this kind of pushing out of the energy, but with time, it will speed up. So when it comes to closing this type of circle, the way I personally choose to do it is to physically break it. So what I typically do is, if I have cast a circle in this way, and I finish the working and I'm ready to release that energy, what I do is I will do this with my hands. So I will put my hands together like this. I will push it up to the edge of the top of the circle or the front of the circle, wherever you're able to get to, depending on your personal situation. And then I would just pull it apart and just close it by literally pushing the energy away. And then you ground, you put that energy back into the earth again, you can give yourself a bit of a shake off, and then that circle is closed. So those are the two different ways that I have personally done energetic circle casting, and you don't have to just stick to these two methods. You can mix and match. You can do the second type of circle casting, but lower the energy with just your visualization and energy manipulation if you don't want to or can't physically extend yourself to almost cut open the circle. You can just do it by lowering it in your mind. As long as you're able to lower that energy effectively and then ground it back into the earth again, you are good to go. So those are the two main types that I have personally done. And if you're practicing this, you can literally just practice it without needing to have a purpose for it. A lot of people, when they're starting out, they think that in order to do something, they need to have a working. But in this case, you definitely don't have to. If you want to master circle casting, just practice casting and closing, opening, closing, opening, closing, opening, closing, circle after circle after circle. And as long as you are not using your own personal energy to cast that circle, and you're instead drawing up that energy and then pushing it back down again into the earth, you're never going to run out of spiritual energy in order to do it. Instead, you are just practicing your technique. And that's what makes energetic circle casting such a fantastic place to start. Because this form of circle casting is used in most ceremonial forms of circle casting. It's just not really talked about all that much. So if you want to move on to do ceremonial circle casting, this is a great place to start because it gives you the core basis of what a circle or a bubble is. It is the ability to protect yourself from energies and spirits that want to interfere with your working. It's being able to contain that energy till you want to release it. And that is what all circle casting at its core really is all about. And this is my personal favorite way of doing circle castings. Once you've practiced it, it becomes easier and easier and easier to do it. When you first start, you might find that your bubble is only kind of as big as you and your altar, or you and your tools. But as time goes on, you might be able to circle cast an entire room if you wanted to encompass everything in that sacred space that you are creating. This form of circle casting also allows you to undertake it anywhere. So if you want to circle cast and you're doing a working in the woods, or you're doing the working in a field or at a friend's house, you don't need to carry around rope or salt or eggshells or candles or representational items. Instead, you can just work it with your own energy, and it's not something you need to carry around a bunch of items for, which makes it really useful. So as I mentioned earlier, what do you do if you forget something outside of the circle? I think a lot of us have done this. I know I definitely have. It's not the finest moment within my magical practice. I have had one time where I attempted to cast a spell and I think I left every other item outside of the circle. So I went to fetch one thing, came back and realized I was missing like 6 other things. I think it's something we've all done, and there is a way to get around having to constantly lower and raise the circle, because that can get time consuming. The idea behind this is that because it is energy, it is a sphere of energy, you are able to manipulate it the same as you manipulate your own personal energy, because you are the one that's keeping that circle up. So if you forget something that's outside of the circle, one of the most common ways of leaving a circle safely without releasing all that energy is to create what's known as a doorway. Now, for a lot of people, this is done physically by cutting a door into that energy. But if you're doing it solely through visualization, not physical action, you can do it in your mind as well. So typically, if you have a bubble, and this is a very small bubble just to show you because the camera doesn't show very much. So if you have your bubble and you've forgotten something outside, what you would typically do is you would go from the floor and you would cut with your tool, with your finger, with your mind, whatever it may be, a door shape that is suitable for you to get through. You would then exit the circle, closing the door behind you by doing the cut in reverse. You then grab the item, you come back to your circle, you recut a door, you walk through, and then you reseal the door. And that way, the energy is constantly contained, you're not leaving an open gap for it to get through, and you also don't have to constantly keep lower and raise your circle, because this can get very time consuming, especially if you're doing it with the first technique, where you are walking around clockwise, and then going over your head, and then you've got to close it again, and then you've got to keep doing that repeatedly. It can get very time consuming. So by cutting a door into the circle, it allows for such easy access to things outside. Although I will say that the more you interfere with that circle, the less stable it's gonna be. And so if you can make sure that everything is inside the circle before you start, that stops you from having to constantly interfere with your circle again and again and again and again. Now, I have been asked before, what happens if animals run through the circle? Or what if people run through the circle? That is not going to affect the stability of the circle really in any much way. Mainly because it's your energy that you want to contain, and if you interfere with the circle, you are breaking your own energy. You are doing it intentionally to leave and to return. If a cat happens to run through your circle, don't worry too much about it, because that brief interference is not done knowingly by that cat or that dog or that guinea pig or that ferret, whatever you might have in your home at the time. If a person walks through that circle, I would say as long as you can make sure the circle stays sealed, you will be completely fine. Not everyone feels comfortable doing that. Some people would have to lower the circle and then rebuild it and then rebuild all the energy inside as well. I lived in quite a busy household where people were kind of constantly coming and going. So if someone happened to walk through a circle, I didn't have the patience to have to deal with it. And my workings came out completely fine from that. Other people's might not. So I would say if it's a person, it entirely depends on preference. So if that person has energy that is gonna interfere with that working and they have walked into your circle, you may want to lower that circle and just redo it all over again. But if it's someone with kind of neutral energy or positive energy, then that might actually just add to the working that you're doing, and in which case keep that circle up. That one really entirely depends on the individual that's broken the circle, and it entirely depends on every person that's casting a circle as well. So hopefully this video helps you guys to know a little bit more about circle casting from an energetic standpoint. Now there is a video coming out about ceremonial circle casting, but for that I'm going to need a little bit more space, so I might have to move my sofa. It's one of those where I don't often do ceremonial circle casting because of the space it requires. But we will get onto that in another video. So I hope you guys found this useful. I hope that it answered some of your questions on circle casting. If you do have any more questions, feel free to put them down in the comment section and I will try to answer as many as I possibly can. And so will the other people on this channel. There are some amazing people on this channel and you guys help other people out so often, and you are just amazing. You're all just amazing. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. It really, really means so much to me, and it lets me know that you guys enjoy the content that I am creating. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, video ideas, or just want to chit chat with the community down in the comment section, feel free to post a comment. And if you enjoy the magical content on this channel or in this video, feel free to hit subscribe. I post new magical content every Wednesday and every Saturday at 6 p.m. And a massive shout out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing, and I've updated the Patreon list, so you guys will see your names on the end screen in just a few moments. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love spending time with you guys, and I look forward to seeing you if you choose to join me in the next video. So I hope you have a marvelous magical day, and I will see you in the next one.